Hi, I'm John Atkinson, Editor-in-Chief of Stereophile magazine, and I'm sitting here with Paul McGowan, founder of PS Audio, in the dedicated listening room at PS Audio's factory in Boulder, Colorado. We've just finished walking through the factory, which is in a separate video, and Paul's been explaining the design, the engineering, the manufacturing, and the quality control. And now we're in this wonderful listening room. So Paul, in the previous video, you talked about this room, this system is the microscope for detecting differences.
Right.
So what I wanted to ask you was, before you can detect differences, where does the inspiration come from a new product? I mean, you've been doing this for what?
45 years.
45 years, and you started with the phono preamp. Since then, you've created, and your team has engineered a large number of products, but what is the inspiration for those products?
That's a good question, John, thanks. I would have to say up front, part of the problem that I have is too many products in the head. Mm-hmm. There's too many things going on in my master plan, if you will. But inspiration can come from any number of places. I think the biggest area where I draw inspiration for products is an overview of what I want for the company, mm-hmm. what we want for the company. And our ultimate goal has always been to make a complete system, to provide something where people can go from the AC outlet to their ears, and everything in the middle is either designed by PS Audio or approved by us. And the reason for that is pretty simple. And you know this as well as I do. You've been around, well, certainly longer. I think I'm older than you.
I think we're the same age.
Is that okay? All right.
We're in our early 40s.
Yeah, we're in our early 40s. Oh boy. But the classic conundrum that people go through is they want a certain level of performance when they're playing music. And they'll go to a dealer and they'll say, here's what I want. I want a highly resolving system. I want this, that, or the other thing. And the first thing the dealer asks is, well, what's your budget? What are your likes and dislikes? And they try and cobble together a system. And usually it's a group of disparate parts that hopefully work with enough synergy to create that which the customer mm-hmm. is hoping for. Inevitably, unless you go with, like a Lin system or any number of, a lot of the British systems, a name, Lin, are the ones I'm sort of familiar with, have that overall system approach. But in general, you'll wind up with this bit of kit from this company and that, and you hope that they all go together. And inevitably, they somehow don't. Mm-hmm. And so we get into this mix and match sort of thing. And I want to be able to tell our customers, here's what I would recommend. If you have $10,000 to spend, or you have $3,000, or whatever it is, I would recommend these products. And the only way I've been able to figure it out is to create the whole garden, if you will, so that people can parcel it out as best they can. So I think a lot of the inspiration comes from that desire, though I could probably ramble on longer than you'd want to hear about where some of them honestly come from my seeing, or and it's not just me, because product designs in this company come from any number of sources, but if it's me, I'll see something that just isn't being done right, or something that I know we can do better, or something that we can bring something to the table that hasn't been done yet. And our core principles are high value, high performance, and something that customers want that we can be proud of to manufacture. So when all those things line up, that usually inspires us to build a product.
Mm-hmm. I mean, to take a specific example, I remember the Ultra DAC, which we gave a very good review to back in the 90s, and a number of us used it as a reference back then. But then when you introduced the Perfect Wave Direct Stream DAC in what, 2014?
I'm not very good with dates.
Well, anyway, so this
take your word
was
for
a very different beast in that it was not based on a specific chipset, but you based it on a field programmable field array, an FPGA, which would allow upgrading, changes. Now, was that your idea to do that, or was that from another member of your team?
That was from another member of the team, Ted Smith.
Oh, right.
So that's actually a great story. We had made the Perfect Wave DAC, which was based on a Wolfson chip, and we did what we normally do. Bob Stather did most of the design and engineering on that, and guided by me, like we want to make sure that it's very power supply intensive, that it does this, that, and the other, and all the things that we'd learned, like the current to voltage conversion to be done discreetly and not using op amps, and all the things that we've learned over the years. And we made a pretty good DAC. It was the Perfect Wave DAC. So my good friend Gus Skinnis, who runs the SACD mastering center.
Right, here in Boulder.
He's just a great guy. And Terry had come to me on I think it was a Thursday or Friday.
Terry, your wife.
Terry, my wife. And she said, all right, are you free tonight? Because let's go to dinner. And we're just going to, she routinely tries to, bless her heart, get me spirited away from the company and go do something that normal people do, like go to dinner. So I had promised her, it's our date night tonight. We're heading out. As we're walking out the door, Gus Skinnis pulls up to the front, hops out of the car, and he goes, Paul, and Gus, I thought something was wrong. And you have to come meet somebody. Terry, and we're walking out to go to our date night. Terry looks over at me and he goes, oh, I'm so sorry, were you doing something? And she said, I don't know, McGowan, just go. I'll wait for you at the restaurant, but make it quick. And all right, so thanks. So Gus spirits me away. We run over to his mastering lab, and there is this guy with this giant beard in shorts and sandals, Ted Smith, in a Hawaiian shirt. And Ted has this massive circuit board. I've never seen anything quite, it would definitely not fit into a chassis. And Gus said, you have to hear this. So I was used to Gus's system, and he puts on the mastering system. We played something, one of his DSD masters, and I listened to it, and I said, yeah, okay. He said, now, he pulled out the feed from the mastering board, and this had gone into a whole bunch of Meitner DACs, which was his reference at the time, and he plugged it into this massive board of this bearded man in the Hawaiian shirt and said, now listen. And I listened, and I said, it sounds identical. And he goes, exactly, it's identical. And he said, I've never heard anything like it. It's not only identical, it is, he was just waxing on and off. And I thought, oh my God. And the crazy part was, his system was connected up through a proper SPDIF, or I think it was all SPDIF connected, I'm not really sure. This was going through a single piece of cheap toss link through a musical instrument converter that converted, that's right, it came out coax, went through this cheesy little converter to toss link and into Ted's DAC, and it sounded identical. And that's when I thought, oh my God. And we had tried our DAC there. It wasn't even close. So anyway, that's how and this DAC was based on an FPGA. And Ted said, yeah, I've been trying to get somebody to listen to me. And I said, I'm listening, boss. You need to come over and build DACs for us. So sorry, that was sort of a long-winded.
Yeah, but it's an interesting story of it. The fact you can now upgrade the firmware for the Perfect Wave Direct Stream DAC
yes,
is a bonus for the fact that Ted wanted to use an FPGA in the first place, and an FPGA is reprogrammable, as its name suggests.
Exactly.
And now you've just introduced your most recent one, which is it?
The Red Cloud?
Yeah, the Red Cloud, and so now all the reviewers have to go back and now listen again and then write again. It's like you get constant coverage by doing this.
which is not why we do it, but yeah, thank you. Yeah, and I know that's a pain in the butt, but
Yeah. No, I think
it's
in your newsletter you said reviewers are going to hate me, but here's another firmware update.
well, when Ted brings these over and he emails, I mean, imagine he emails me a new DAC
Yeah.
and said, "Here, listen to this," and we put it on this system, and Darren Myers and I do most of the listening here, and our jaws just dropped. Like, oh my God, Ted, what'd you do? And in one case, he doubled the sample rate, but it's completely configurable. And I know we're not the only one. I believe Chord, don't they use an FPGA?
Chord, yes. In fact, they've just used a new Xilinx chip. It draws 10 amps of current.
10 amps?
10 amps. So
okay.
That's not something you can just drop into a regular chassis.
No. And we use Xilinx too, and it does run hot, but it doesn't take any 10 amps.
No, this is a new one. Anyway. I mean, but it's that upgradability you got as a byproduct of incorporating Ted's original design.
Which I love. I mean, my ultimate dream has always been to make a completely upgradable stereo system.
Mm-hmm.
Everything. The amps, everything would be either upgradable or you could configure it however you wanted, like an audio, I don't want to say audio palette, because the palette has already been. But
the Mark Levinson, the man creation.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, think about when you buy a computer. You can choose the amount of RAM you want, what kind of power supply you want, what kind of video card and all that. Wouldn't it be great if you could buy a frame, an audio frame, and then choose what level of power supply do you want, what level of DAC, what level of this or that. I think that'd be really cool.
Yeah. Well, again, back to the DAC. I mean, you introduced the bridge adapter so it could be used over a network, which I really like, because I'm finding putting discs on, it's like going back to the last century. To be able to sit there in my listening chair with my iPad running Roon and just have everything sent over the network to the DAC, I like that. It makes access to my music so easy.
Exactly.
Although, having said that, when I do put a disc in, there's still something right about the sound of a disc playing in a mechanical disc playing the mechanical transport.
Sounds better so far than every server that we've tried so far. And we're working on a server. And we're going to try and fix that problem. We think we may know why that the physical DAC, because on the surface, it makes no sense whatsoever.
The bits are the same. They're the same bits being presented to the DAC.
Yep. And that's true only in whether it's a 1 or a 0. What is different, and I'm preaching to the choir here, but the timing of the bits, the noise levels that go on, and all the things, it isn't just, bits are bits. Because people ask me, well, how is it that I can download one of Cookie Marenko's Blue Coasts through 30,000 miles of wire over the internet, put it onto my computer and have it sound identical as it does to Cookie when she doesn't have, it's going, and the bits are the same. What's different is when you start adding clocks and you start clocking those bits, and you have to deal with noise issues and ground issues. That's when the difference comes.
Well, I mean, that's downloading a file and playing it. What about streaming, where, the packets of a musical data, this one may have come through this route, this one through this route.
Exactly.
Maybe this one under the sea to Africa and back, because that was, because that whole routing thing is black magic.
Yep.
And yet the DAC just assembles it all in the right order and plays the music.
Exactly.
We take all this stuff for granted, but it really is quite wonderful.
It is quite wonderful, and how funny that we can send bits and packets through space and underwater and through all this stuff, and then we whine about the littlest bit that it's off just a little bit.
Yeah.
And
then there are the mysteries, like, in our discussions in the past, we have said there is no reason at all why Ethernet cables should sound different.
Yes.
And they do.
And
then you think, well, I'll just put that to one side. Wait, and I will wait for you to tell me why.
To be honest, John, I'm going like this. I don't want to know or hear about it, because every time I do, that sends me off on another path to figure out why. Yeah. So it's crazy, but I find it invigorating. I love this kind of stuff. The mysteries involved are amazing. But we are trying to narrow it down, and one of the things that we've found is the radiated EMI, the noise inside of devices, has a great deal to do with how those bits are presented to the DAC. And we know that USB sounds so much different than SPDIF. And part of the reason is because of the two-way communication you have over that cable. You're connecting it up to a noisy DAC, like the USB regenerator or our Land Rover. All these things are used to isolate, from the noise.
Yeah, because the ground in the computer is hashy. It's horrible.
Yep.
And so if you connect that ground of the computer to the ground in your audio system, now the ground in your audio system is noisy.
Exactly. And you don't have that when you do a good transport. So that's one of the reasons.
Yeah.
But we could probably go on for hours with that kind of stuff.
So Paul, in the other video, you were explaining Arnie Newdell's, statement product, the IRS-5.
Right.
And I understand that before Arnie sadly passed, he was working with you on loudspeakers for PS Audio?
Yep. Yeah, Arnie, for years, as I tried to explain a little earlier, one of our goals is to be able to have a complete PS Audio system. And one of the things that we've done at the company is tried to make it more of less of a, I don't know if legacy is the right word, but less of a one-person company. And so one of my goals is that I want the company to go to represent what it represents and move into the future without me.
Right.
And because, in a few months I'm going to be 70 years old. And
we are the same age then.
We are?
Yeah, because I'm also going to be 70 in a few months.
Oh my God. What's your birthday?
June.
May.
We can cut this,
I get there
right?
first.
We can cut this, right?
No, we got to keep it. Just two old farts sitting here talking. You born in 48?
Yeah.
Oh God. Yeah, we are the same age. But in any case, as much as none of us actually believe it in our hearts, evidence is pretty clear that I won't go on forever. And there's nearly 40 people that depend on this company for their livelihood, and thousands of people all over the world that depend on this company to bring high-value, high-performance products. So I don't want that to go away, and I want it to go into the future. So one of the things I've been doing is, let's not make this a Paul McGowan show. So we've brought on Ted Smith, who's doing all of our digital audio. We brought on Bascom King, and now we brought on a Class A engineer, Darren Meyer. We've had Bob Stadther all along. So those designers are actually responsible for most of the products that come out here. And to that stable, I wanted to add Arnie Newdell. I can't think of a better speaker designer for my money than Arnie. His ability to listen to a loudspeaker and tell you exactly technically why that violin didn't sound exactly right, or why the blat of a trombone wasn't just there, and then what to do about it was extraordinary. And so he and I have always been aligned on dynamic speakers, how they're built, and I had engaged him to build a line of speakers for us. And it was all going to be labeled the AN series, and we had gotten quite far. We'd worked nearly 2 years on it, and we had all the designs as far as the feature set, and the drivers were chosen for just about all of it. And then sadly he passed away, and that was quite a blow to all of us. And his family wants that to continue. So his son David and I have been working together, and what we have left, aside from all the work that he's done, here's how I want it built, here's how I want the cabinet, and all this stuff. What we do have is his last reference pair.
Yeah.
And this pair of loudspeakers is extraordinary. It just makes these pale in comparison to what he did. And it's not a huge speaker, it's maybe that tall. And
using conventional moving coil drivers?
Well, it's a combination of ribbons. Arnie wound up using ribbons, so it's a single enclosure with 12-inch woofers coming out of each side, servo controlled, of course. I think it's a 6.5-inch mid-bass woofer, mid-bass coupler is what he called it, and then a long ribbon and a group of tweeters.
Okay.
And the most extraordinary system I have ever heard by a magnitude. And several people here, Darren Myers went up and he got used to the system, and both of us come back here and this is one hell of a system, but nothing compared to what Arnie did. So we are inheriting that system. We're building a special room for it, and it will be, actually you saw it where the ping pong table currently is.
Yes.
We're going to clear all that crap out, build another listening room, and on one end of the listening room will be Arnie's reference set up, and on the other end of the listening room will be the speakers that we are building. So we'll be able to listen to a track here and go over here and listen how we did, mimicking that sound as our reference. Without Arnie, that's the best we can do.
Yeah, and you're going to assemble them in this building.
Yes. Well, in a building in Boulder.
Oh, okay.
We are out of room, so yeah, we have to get a bigger facility.
Yeah.
But yes, we are. Yep. We'll build. I'm not sure where we'll build the cabinets. We may go to Asia for the cabinets. We've been trying to engage local woodworkers here, but haven't had a lot of success so far.
Yeah. There was another speaker manufacturer I was speaking to a couple of years back, and he said, one thing people don't understand is that we would source our cabinets from China. We would prefer to source from North America, but we cannot find anybody who could do the work.
Yep, exactly. And that's been our problem as well. If you want a speaker that looks good, that has the properties like curved sides and things that we like in baffles, apparently that's incredibly difficult.
Yeah.
Most of the manufacturers here have only 1 or 2 axis CNC machines, and you need a 5-axis CNC. So a CNC is like a drill press that can turn around like this, and a 5-axis you can do angles on it. And in Asia, they're set up for those all those kinds of things. So we will go wherever we need to source it. But whatever we do, they'll all come here. We'll assemble it, we'll build it, we'll install it, and I hope to have a very decent line of products that are from the affordable to the, if you can afford it, here it is.
Okay.
But that's our goal.
And the time frame for the introduction?
Well, with the caveat that I have never in my life been accurate on a time frame, I will say that sometime this year, 2018, we would like to at least be listening to products and maybe shipping in 2019.
Yeah.
That's the goal. I have not learned how to be accurate with goals, especially when it comes to code. So around here, code is a necessary 4-letter word.
Yeah.
So, but it's an exciting project. And one of the things, if I might just delve into it a little deeper, Arnie and I both had the same feeling about live music being recreated in the home. I don't think anybody has managed to do it properly yet. I have never heard a system where I can sit down, close my eyes, and actually believe that there is an orchestra in front of me. I've been fooled or a couple times, well, yeah, that's pretty believable. I can do that. But then a crescendo comes up, and I am painfully aware that it is manufactured in my room.
Yeah.
This system here, the IRS has how many? I don't remember. Well, it's got close to 100-something drivers in it. Mid-ranges, you've got 12 mid-range drivers where each of the drivers is only doing 1/12 of the work of what we would normally have for one. So when you talk about dynamics, this system can have unrestrained dynamics from here to higher than most any loudspeaker. It is absolutely effortless, and yet I can still tell that it is a recording, that I'm not in that space. And I have a great experiment that I do, and maybe some of you who are watching this, and I'm sure you've had this experience, you are walking along through, maybe if you're traveling, a motel or a hotel, and you'll hear the sound from way far away of somebody playing a piano, or there's a little quartet playing, and you know instantly that it's live. You know that's not coming through a pair of speakers. I've had it walking down the street and hearing it through an open window, somebody practicing the piano. So, and Arnie and I have had this argument for years. Why?
Well,
how do I know that?
I wrote 20 years ago, I had the same experience. There is something that all loudspeakers have which doesn't exist with real sound. And that's a bit of a stretch. You can say, well, there are some examples. But all loudspeakers are high-pass filters. There are no high-pass filters with real acoustic sounds. And when you hear the sound of a piano coming through an open window, there is no high-pass filter.
And I would think that that is a good statement, but I got to argue with you on one thing. How come I can also tell when somebody's playing an electric guitar through a Marshall amp, which is a speaker?
Yes, yes.
Sorry.
No.
I'm getting... But I think Arnie and I might have a solution to that. I think we may have figured out a way to get closer to that.
Well,
and that's what these speakers will be based upon. We'll see.
I'll see. We've talked about your design philosophies. You're assembling an engineering team to realize those philosophies. We've talked about what you want to achieve with loudspeakers. But one thing PS Audio, it stands out from other audio companies, is you've created an online community. You have forum, you do a daily newsletter, you do daily videos, and you have an outreach which is quite unusual. What was your motive in doing that?
And Copper Magazine.
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
You do them. Yeah, of course, competing magazine. Of course, I'm going to forget
Sorry.
it.
And I'm going to plug it. So, well, we've always had an outreach with our customers from day one, not in that same way. I remember in 1974 when we started the company, we had personal outreach to our customers because no dealer would take us. We were just such small potatoes, and there were these big companies like Audio Research and Bob Carver's company and Phase Linear, and those were the companies that they paid attention to. So we didn't have a lot of choice but to deal directly with our customers, and that philosophy has kind of carried forward since the day we actually started. And it developed into something a little different because many companies, and this is just the way they do it, and I'm not a fan of it, but I understand it. A number of companies consider their dealers to be their customers. And they market to their dealers, they spend money on their dealers, they do all of that. And then it's up to the dealers to find customers and buy the stuff. But many companies find their dealers or their customers, and we have never done that. We have always believed that the end user is our customer, and they're buying PS Audio goods, and the dealer is a conduit towards doing that. And so that's sort of the start of it, and I can get more specific if you want.
Yeah, I mean, you give me the opportunity to use a word I love to use, which is, aren't you running then the danger of disintermediating the dealers by going
absolutely.
Over them to
my
the
God,
customer?
yes. Oh, yes. It's everything you do comes with a great deal of baggage.
Yeah.
Some of it good, some of it bad, and it's always a double-edged sword. And that is certainly one of the double-edged swords that we've had to deal with. So there are a number of dealers, big-time dealers, who will not have anything to do with PS Audio. They don't want us because we actually interact with the customers, and they don't want us doing that. That is their customer, not our customer.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that absolutely runs into it, and that's part of the price we pay.
Yeah.
But in today's landscape, it just so happens, it's not like we planned this, but in today's landscape with the internet, what's happening is the dealer base is truncating, is going down. And I believe, as in most things, the pendulum swings both ways. So I think what's going to happen, and you see it now, dealers are narrowing down, and then after a while, that'll switch and they'll grow again, but in a different way.
Yeah.
That's typically what's happened. But I'll tell you how, like Paul's post, the outreach things that we do specifically, how that all came to be. A very good friend of mine, Seth Godin.
Yeah, a writer.
He's a writer. He's written like 18 books, and Seth happens to be an audiophile. He's a very big audiophile, and he's a brilliant guy. And I got invited to one of Seth's seminars on marketing, and Seth inspired me. I'm sitting in the audience, and he said, "You've got all of a sudden a platform where any person in this audience can have their own magazine, their own broadcast studio, their own outreach to customers. And what are you doing with that power?" And I'm sitting there thinking, nothing. I ain't doing nothing. And and Seth does a daily blog, and so he and I talked, and he said, well, and so, and it was a very frightening move, because I don't think I had that much to say. How do you come up with something to say over the last 6 years, every single day, and I've never missed a day?
No.
How do you do that? Well, you in Paul's style, you do that by jumping in both feet and just making a commitment.
Yeah.
But what we've found is that outreach, that the more that we give of ourselves, and there's very little marketing in it. Once in a while I'll mention products, but mostly it's to give to people, and it's actually called permission-based marketing. And the idea behind permission-based marketing is, instead of intrusive marketing where you watch a television show and right at the point where the guy's going to have the knife coming out, time for a break, and now and that's intrusion based, and I don't actually want to see that commercial.
No. Well, it's happening now on YouTube, where they used to have what are called bumpers at the beginning, or there'd be a pre-roll ad before the actual video. Now what they're doing is putting a video in the middle.
Yep.
Because they know that, if there's no ad at the beginning, okay, you're going to watch it.
Oh, it actually stops the current video? And
yes.
And
now you have an ad appears, and there's a countdown clock, 20,
God.
19, 18, 17, and you're thinking, do I really want to keep watching this video? And I think half the time I say no.
No.
Move on.
Of course you don't. It's old thinking. It's stupid. It's intrusive. It's not something that enriches people's lives. What the best way to market, to build a community, is to give to the community. So I do my best to educate, to tell funny stories, anything I can, to where people don't feel threatened. They just watch what I have on the video, or they'll read my post, because they're actually inviting me into their homes and saying, sure, as long as you're not trying to sell me something all the time, and you're not invading me, then I'll let you do that. And it's just, we've built a huge community. We just passed over 1 million page views a month, which
that is excellent
for a hardware company.
Yeah.
Not too bad. Not too bad.
Not too shabby at all.
And our forums, the one thing that we police on our forums is to where people are kind to each other.
Yeah.
Where we can learn, we can share, we can talk about high-end audio, and it's not a place where people come over and rampage, and we don't allow that on there. It's just got to be a gentle place.
Yeah, so you keep the trolls down.
Yep.
One of the things which concerns me as a magazine editor is, particularly when it comes to the technical educational stuff that you post on your site, is, well, wait a minute, that's what I should be doing. But I come from the old world of magazine publishing, so I see in that sense you are a competitor, not a collaborator.
And I don't look at it that way, because one of the things we, like with Copper Magazine, for example, we paid very close attention to never mentioning kit or gear.
Yeah.
Right? We don't do reviews. We don't talk about equipment.
No,
it's about music and stuff of interest to people that enjoy things like that. The magazines have such a critical role, and I think without the magazines, the industry is really going to be really suffering. And what you do, the reports, the great writing, the reviews, people. I'm a manufacturer. If I tell you that my box sounds great,
well, you're going to say that, aren't you?
yeah, well, yeah. I mean, I wouldn't. I will tell people, but I'm weird. I'm weird, right? In general, when a manufacturer says, hey, my stuff's great, yeah, we're going to take that with a grain of salt. When John Atkinson says, this sounds great, you don't have an axe to grind. You don't have, you are very careful not to let influences other than what you hear. And that voice, that unbiased voice with a technical background, is absolutely critical to our industry.
Wow.
And I applaud you for
Thank
that.
you. Thank
And
you.
I would never want to compete with that, because that is critical to our industry. Without that, we're screwed.
Yeah, I mean, I'm only half serious about being competitors. I remember when my partner Larry Archibald and I owned Stereophile, and I was grumpy at one point, and I said, you know, if you press this button and that Ava magazine, Absolute, whatever it was, would disappear, I would press that button. And Larry said, no, 2 magazines generate 4 times the enthusiasm. 3 magazines, 9 times the enthusiasm.
Right, right.
And I mean, that's where we're at, but we're all dealing with this new world.
But more than that, imagine if you were the only magazine and all of a sudden somebody unlike yourself got a hold of it and said, there's opportunity here we're not taking advantage of. And if we don't write reviews that piss people off, and if we don't speak the truth and we're more like Consumer Reports or some dreck like that, then more people will subscribe and they'll have a broader audience. And it's just dumbing down, and nobody needs that. Nobody wants that.
Well, I mean, Stereophile, to blow my own horn here, Stereophile is actually doing very well in the age of the internet. Well, why is that? And I'd like to take credit for this, but it just happens to be that I've always believed in magazines which have a very narrow niche and a very deep niche.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't talk down to your readers, you give them a lot of depth in what you're discussing. Along comes the internet. Internet isn't good at narrow and deep.
Right.
It's really good at shallow and broad.
Mm-hmm.
So the magazines like Stereophile, which are thriving in the internet age, are the narrow, deep magazines. The general interest magazines, the shallow magazines, they can't compete with the internet. And okay, this is not quite the whole story, because yes, you can get niche on the internet, but that's why there's still a need for a paper magazine.
Absolutely. Oh, absolutely.
And the one thing I take great pride in doing is, my goal is, before I eventually shuffle off this mortal coil, is to have everything Stereophile has ever published free on our website. I'm getting there. I got every As We See It going back to issue #1. I've got about 2/3 of everything J. Gordon Holt ever wrote available online. I've got, I think, 3/4 of the equipment reports we've ever published. So I do that every week. Every Sunday, I prepare new stuff.
That's our. If you
and
can
there
hear
goes
that,
the air compressor.
There goes the air compressor. Yeah, it should be short-lived because nobody's using it.
So should we just wait for it to stop, Jen?
There it goes. Yeah.
Okay. So I mean, yeah. Sorry, I'm blowing my. I'm interviewing you, and here I am blowing
No,
my
and
own
you should
trumpet.
though, because I think it's important, and also good writing. So much writing today is just. It's not engaging. It's not informative. It's old and tired. I'm an ardent subscriber to the New Yorker.
No, yes.
And
good writing.
Good writing. I mean, they define good writing. And David Remnick, the editor for that, is just they're just brilliant. But talk about deep, narrow. I mean, they define that kind of thing, and that's why they are successful.
Yeah.
In the same reason that Stereophile is successful. And no offense, but TAS does a good job too. I mean, I think those 2 magazines are critical to the longevity, to the growth of what we do, and I support it. I support it very much, and I just think that the more we can give to the high-end audio community, and the broader our reach can go to let people know there really is something out there that's better than McDonald's.
Yes.
It's going to benefit all of us, and it'll benefit anybody that enjoys music.
Well, thank you very much, Paul.
My pleasure, John.
It's been great hanging out, speaking.
Likewise.
I'm now going to do some listening in this room.
Okay, let's do it.
Thank you.